17 News, your local election headquarters. Tonight, a candidates debate. The 2nd District Supervisor debate, brought to you by Barton Marketing Group.
And good evening to you. Welcome to our debate tonight, featuring the 3 candidates running for Kern County's 2nd District Supervisor seat. I'm Jim Scott.
And I'm Maddie Gannon. Good to have you with us for the next 30 minutes.
All right, the candidates are here to debate the issues that matter to the people of the 2nd District, and we'll get to that in just a moment. First, let's take a look at the sprawling 2nd District. It spans the southern half of Kern County. From Taft and Maricopa in the west, it cuts into southern portions of Bakersfield and includes Tehachapi, Fraser Park, Rosemont, Mojave, California City, and Boron. The 2nd District is home to Edwards Air Force Base and the Mojave Air and Spaceport. At over 3,600 square miles, the 2nd District accounts for roughly 40% of Kern County's land mass, roughly the size of Delaware and Rhode Island combined.
And now let's introduce our candidates moving left to right. Kelly Kern Jr. is 36 years old and a lifelong resident of Rosemont, where he lives with his girlfriend and 4 children. He currently works as a driver for DoorDash and helps run the family-owned 99-cent store and a U-Haul franchise. Mr. Kern also has 18 years of experience in the hospitality business, and he's a graduate of Rosemont High School. Pete Graff is 50 years old, married with 8 children. He's a former business owner specializing in private security. He served 10 years on the Tehachapi Police Department and currently works as a safety representative and utility forester for ACRT Pacific, a subcontractor for Southern California Edison. Mr. Graff is a graduate of Tehachapi High School and has lived in Tehachapi since 1979. And Zach Scrivener, of course, is the incumbent seeking his 4th term in office. He's 48 years old, married with 4 children, living in Tehachapi. Before his election to the board, Mr. Scrivener served 6 years on the Bakersfield City Council, representing Ward 7. He holds a bachelor's degree in English literature from UC Santa Barbara and is a Bakersfield native.
All right, candidates, time now for opening statements. We cut the cards earlier to determine the order, and Zach Scrivener is up first. Mr. Scrivener, 1 minute, please, for opening statement.
Well, thank you, Jim. First of all, I want to thank KGET for having this debate, but especially I want to thank the voters of the 2nd District. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve as your supervisor, and I just want to tell you we've had some tough budget years, as many of you know, but I've always demonstrated the tough fiscal responsibility that I promised. And I've always prioritized public safety while still finding ways to make investments in quality of life projects such as parks, our animal welfare services, etc. One of the things that I'll continue to work on is diversifying our economy. As you know, the 2nd District is a hub for aerospace, agriculture, oil, energy, mining, logistics, and we need to continue to build on those things as well as expand our economies in other areas. And it's been a great honor and a privilege to serve you, and I hope to earn your vote and your trust.
All right. Pete Graff, you have the floor, sir. 1 minute for opening statement, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jim, Maddie, KGET. This is a great opportunity for myself and the other folks running for this position, the incumbent, to reach out to Kern County. To reach out specifically to District 2, Eastern Kern County. This is an opportunity for us to explore a little bit what we've been lost in the last decade or so. This is going to be a great night of great questions so that we can have clarity on actually what's occurring inside of our city. We're going to hear certain things about certain budgets. We're going to hear certain things on why things aren't being done. But we need to answer why they're not being done. We can do this stuff year after year, term after term, and sit here and guess why things aren't being done and point the finger at everybody else. Plain and simple, it comes down to leadership. And tonight we're going to explore that, and I want to thank KGET for that opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Kelly Kern Jr., opening statement, please, 1 minute.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Maddie, and KGET for hosting us tonight. I'm a lifelong 3rd-generation resident of Eastern Kern County. I decided to run for office not because I'm a politician or because I come from a politically expedient family, but because over the course of the last several years, I've watched our land use fees go up several times. I watched our special districts raise our water rates. I watched everything get more expensive and only get harder on the people of Kern County. I really believe in the greatness of Kern County. We're the 2nd largest agricultural producing county in the entire country, 7th largest oil producing county. We actually produce more oil than the entire state of Oklahoma. We have the future of space travel. We have 2 military installations that specialize in top secret research, and still we're struggling. I chose to run this year when my neighbors felt as if they were being ignored by the incumbent and being ignored by our representatives. And I said, I'm tired of watching the people of Kern County, the people that I've grown up with and alongside for my entire life, be ignored over and over again. That's why I decided to put my name in the hat, and I do hope that I can earn your vote tonight.
Well, thank you all. And in some races where the incumbent has been in office for a while, you'll see someone come run against him or her just so that the incumbent doesn't glide into another term unchallenged. Does that describe either of you, Mr. Graff and Mr. Cardin? And if not, can you pinpoint what made you get in this race? We'll start with you, Mr. Graff.
You know, that's actually a great description. That's actually what I am. I am the one that, I'm for term limits. And I believe we've reached that point with the incumbent. I believe we need to have new blood. We need to have a new face. We need to have a new approach on things. Times have changed. We've relied for decades on oil to fund most of our law enforcement. We no longer have that. That's been taken away from us by the state of California. The leases that we have now we cannot use. So we have a massive revenue loss. So we need to change things. And this is the time to do that. And I'm the person that's going to bring that in. I have a tactical mindset, which means I come from law enforcement, I come from business, and I plan to put those two together, and I plan to approach things head on just like that. When that's with the priority of first responders, firefighters, sheriff's deputies, staffing our jails, staffing the MET teams, I'm going to attack this head on. I am that person to come in, as you said, slide right in so that we can see a new face in the program now.
And Mr. Cardin, same question to you. Does that describe you?
Well, Maddie, so what happened was I had actually spoken at a water board meeting locally in Roseman, and I was quoted in the paper. And what happened is within days, hundreds and hundreds of my neighbors from across Roseman as well as Eastern Kern County started saying, thank you for speaking out for us. And then they started listing what was going on, 90-minute response times from the police. We live in half of the towns in the 2nd District, the police officers are dispatched from a further location. So I don't know, the chairman keeps mentioning things like he's provided public safety, but I have to wait 90 minutes for the cops to come to my house. So yes, I mean, that's why I'm running, is for those reasons. I've watched our economy get shredded over the last couple years during the pandemic. I've watched small business owners struggle, and I was tired of that. So I said, you know what? I can do this. I believe that I can resonate with my neighbors across the 2nd District as well as Kern County. I can certainly be a voice for them, and I can make sure that they're getting their fair shake as well.
And Mr. Cardin, do you feel that Mr. Scrivener has let the people down in any specific way, leadership in the 2nd District?
I feel as if Mr. Scrivener is completely out of touch. In his letter for his re-election announcement, he wrote that he'll continue to provide first-class public safety services to the residents of Eastern Kern County. Half of the towns that he's supposed to represent do not have police. So I don't know what he's talking about. So yes, I think he's failed in numerous ways. That's probably the most important.
And Mr. Scrivener, we want to give you a chance to respond, but first we're going to go to Mr. Graff and ask you the same question. Do you think there's any specific leadership failure?
Yes. With Chairman Scrivener, what you have is it's too long term. We have somebody who's now become the classical term of a politician, no longer the representative, no longer our voice. So we have the classic politician now who's been in office 6 years, city council. We're going 12 years, 3 terms, and within the county itself. That's a career. This is what we need to avoid, and this is why we need to implement term limitations. You know, for people to come inside, get new blood every now and then. I have great ideas, let's take them, let's put them to work, but let's bring somebody else in who's going to understand something else in 8, 12 years. Let's bring somebody else in with something new. I got zero problems with that. My big beef is with first responders and the lack of care and the forget of Eastern Kern County, specifically North Edwards, specifically Boron. I was out at a town hall with Mr. Scrivener yesterday, Chairman Scrivener, and there was some very upset people there. And these people are the reason why I'm in this race, because they feel forgotten, they're unheard, and I am not going to tolerate that if I get inside there.
And Mr. Scrivener, we want to give you a chance to respond now. Do you have a response to this?
Yeah, well, specifically to the public safety issue, the county, as I said, we went through some very difficult budget years, and it required a lot of sacrifices from all county departments. But if you look at the departments that we held virtually harmless throughout that period of time, and I'm talking about a $45 million budget deficit that we had to close, we always prioritized public safety, sheriff, and fire. Once we started to dig out of our fiscal hole, we started to go in and be able to make investments into the Sheriff's Department. We raised deputy pay by 48% over the last 3 years for entry-level deputies. We also looked at competing agencies, and we made sure that position for position, the Kern County Sheriff's Department was competitive with other agencies like the Bakersfield Police Department or Delano Police Department, etc. Now we have a new program where we're offering $25,000 signing bonuses for new deputies coming in, from other agencies, and 15,000 signing bonuses for new deputies. We are digging out of the hole we're in. We're doing 2 academies a year, but it is going to take a little bit of time for us to get back to where we need to be. But the sheriff has the money. He has over 100 funded positions, just waiting for people to take the job.
All right, Mr. Scribner, question to you. What would you consider your top accomplishment as 2nd District Supervisor in your 12 years in office?
Well, I think the main thing we've done is we've looked at some structural issues that were occurring within the county, and we've addressed that. We had a terrible problem with our pension costs. As soon as I got into office, I tackled that issue, and now we have pension reforms that are in place that are bringing our budgets down in regard to what we're having to pay out in regard to employee retirement. We did the same thing to do reforms to healthcare, and so you first look at ways, where are we spending too much money, where can we find ways to make meaningful reforms, and so we've done that. Another thing that we've done is we've gone out and we've engaged the communities of Eastern Kern in a way that they had never been done before. We went out and we did community engagement projects, visioning projects with all the communities of Eastern Kern. We basically said, the sky's the limit. What would you like to see in your communities? And we came up with a plan for Rosamond, for Boron, for Mojave, etc. I think those are great things. We created the Renew Biz program, which is a special economic development district just for Eastern Kern, and we've used part of that money now in the upcoming for the upcoming fiscal years to invest over $8.7 million in park improvements, because I believe that parks are also a part of economic development.
All right, Mr. Graff, a rebuttal to that?
It sounds pretty. It really does. It sounds pretty when you listen to it. We're putting a lot of money into things, but plain and simple, what we have here is a leadership issue. We can have a budget all day long, but if we don't have leadership to bring the people in and recruit these people, that's the big problem. We're looking at 200 short of detentions deputies and sheriff's deputies. And your average, remember, I was a police officer. I went through an academy. So your average graduating class is about 23 to 25 persons. At 25 persons, and at this rate of being 200 short, you do the math. We're looking at several years before we're going to fill these spots. We need something now. We don't need to brag about the accolades in the past. We need to talk about now.
All right, Mr. Carden?
So I've spent over the last year just traveling across the 2nd District. I've been to literally every town: Maricopa, Taft, Fraser Park, Lebec, Pine Mountain Club, Rosamond, North Edwards, Boron. And what I've heard consistently over and over again is Chairman Scribner treats our town as if we're the redheaded stepchild of Kern County. So again, he's talking about reaching out effectively, but this is what his voters are saying. He's talking about the police and the shortage in deputies. We should be using that money to retain officers until they get to the next level of pay, because we're not recruiting them from out of county.
All right. Well, supervisors over the last couple of years took steps to bring the county fire department's structural deficit into line. What is your view of the county's supervision of the fire department? Let me start with you, Mr. Carden. Well,
the budget was cut the same year that the sheriff's department was raised, after they had to settle that lawsuit from the state. So while I live in Rosamond and Anthony Romero is the best fire captain in all of Kern County, and I would argue that with anybody, the simple fact is there's still shortcomings in budgets, there's still shortcomings in staff, shortcomings in equipment. He's trying, and we've definitely seen some investments over the last year or so, but we're so far behind. At this point, we're playing catch up. And at 12 years in, we shouldn't be playing catch up anymore. If he's not ahead of the game, he's failed.
Mr. Graff, are you satisfied with the county's supervision of the fire department?
Negative. The people that I speak to with the fire department, they're very unhappy. We have a very low retention rate with sheriff's deputies, detentions, as well as fire. These people are leaving in a mass exodus. They're going for more money, and what they're going for is quality of life. These people have to work BLM time, they have to work fire time, they have to work overtime in order just to make everything that they're doing now. They need a quality of life. We need to give them a quality base pay so that they can stay home with their families, spend time with their kids, spend time with their wives. We have people leaving simply because they know that the structure of management that they're dealing with now is no longer at the helm. The ship has just run away, and they're just leaving now for bigger and better pastures.
And Mr. Scribner.
Well, I knew tonight I may have to correct a few inaccuracies, and so here's my first one. We have never cut the fire department. Even during the tough fiscal years, we've always maintained our 3 firefighters in every station. We have other stations that have ladder trucks, and so they have more. But each station having 3 firefighters in every station. The equipment investments that we've made recently, we've made over $10 million in equipment investments in working with the fire chief to both pull money out of our general fund, but also to go out and finance for new equipment. We've had a lot of old fire equipment that unfortunately was unable to be replaced during the tough fiscal years, but now we're making some significant strides. The other thing that we did was very important was we went to our contract cities. So cities like Tehachapi, Wasco, et cetera, that use the Kern County Fire Department. We discovered that we were very much underpaid when it came to those contract cities. And so now we've rectified that. We've put those cities on a glide path so it slowly ramps up, so we're not going to hit them hard right away, but we are eventually going to get paid our full costs for providing that service, which is going to be very important.
And we've heard our candidates start to mention this, but on the topic of the Sheriff's Department, you have 200 deputy vacancies, low recruitment and retention rates, even with signing bonuses. You've been on the board for all of this, Mr. Scribner. How do we turn this around?
Well, I think that it's continuing to get the word out as far as what we offer. You know, Kern County is a place that I think values law enforcement, it values public safety, whereas you have other parts of the country, unfortunately, with the rhetoric from the media, from politicians, that simply isn't the case. You know, we, I think, did a very clever recruitment for officers from Los Angeles County, both the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and LAPD, that were going to be forced to get a COVID vaccine. Didn't make any sense because those officers were on the front line before there was a vaccine. So many of them had already gotten COVID and recovered. And as we know, those that have recovered from COVID have a much better immunity against the disease than people who get the vaccine. It's just a fact. The signing bonuses for laterals, the signing bonuses for new hires, those are all going to be things that are effective. And because of those investments that I have supported, that's why Sheriff Donnie Youngblood has endorsed me in this race, because he knows that I have a mind for public safety, that it's my top priority, and he wants to see me continue to provide that leadership.
And Mr. Graff, now to you. What do you think we need to do to turn it around?
We have a huge mess. We have a very low retention factor. Plain and simple, this is what we need. We need a rebuild. We need to, I am for the 1% tax. And I propose to put that out there so that people we need to start developing new programs and recruiting people. Right now, the $25,000 he's speaking of, you know, there's 10 people that came out of that pool of that. It's not a big turnover for that. It's a $25,000 fee, but you're still down to base pay. It's still down to benefits. It's still down to base pay. Can you match where they're coming from? Can you match LASO? Can you match LAPD? You can't. So that's where you have to restructure. And that's plain and simple. It's going to start with the 1% sales tax so that we can reboot the program, we can recruit people, give them the pay and quality of life they need. Because if we don't do that, we're going to start losing as far as the mental evaluation teams, mental facilities, sheriff's deputies, firefighters. Everybody's just going to leave for, you know, a better paycheck. And that's where we're at now. We need a reboot.
And Mr. Cardin, now to you, same question.
Yeah, so as far as the Kern County Sheriff's Office, it's realizing exactly why they're leaving, right? I'm sure a lot of officers, the main reason is money, but it's never just money. We don't quit jobs, we quit leaders. So I think it's important that as people are leaving the office, that we're for one, auditing them and actually asking them why they're leaving. You know, and approaching it from that point. You know, once we meet those needs, and the people will stay. But like Mr. Graff said, it's about the benefits, it's about the quality of life. And we really abuse our police departments. We ask them to do so many things that are outside the scope of what they're supposed to do. They're not trained to do it, and it just makes them look bad, and it's not right. So we should be protecting not just our residents of Kern County, but our first responders as well, by helping them be ready to attack the problems that we're seeing.
All right, Mr. Graff, you teed up the next question for us sure. Tonight. You've seen what Measure N has done for the city of Bakersfield, bringing in tens of millions of dollars, new tax dollars annually for public safety and vital services. Measure I, the county's 1-cent sales tax increase, was soundly defeated by a 2-to-1 margin in 2018 by voters in the county. The question is, if elected, and if asked to place a 1-cent sales tax increase for public safety on the ballot, would you vote to do that if elected 2nd District Supervisor? And secondly, would you actively support the campaign to pass that measure? Mr. Scrivener, let me start with you.
Okay. Well, Measure In did pass, and it had a coalition of support. You had a broad swath of the community that was supporting that measure. The county's measure came in mostly as a response to Measure In. I believe the sheriff and others looked and they said, well, if Bakersfield passes this and they're going to be hiring all these officers, they're going to be looking at the Kern County Sheriff's Department to get a lot of those officers as transfers. And so therefore the ballot measure was requested by the board and we put it on. I think it's too early for us to say, yes, we would support a ballot measure or not, because that coalition has not been formed. That conversation with the public hasn't yet occurred.
But how do you feel personally?
Well, how I feel personally is I think that you can make the argument that we're at a competitive disadvantage with areas around us that do have a sales tax increase. But I also think when you look at what's been happening over the course of the last several months, the difference in the answer for people to support that sales tax 6 months ago, I think, could be very different today in light of the inflation, the high gas prices, et cetera. So I think you have to get a feel for the community, you have to get a feel for where the voters are, and also, do you have that coalition in place that would support it?
Mr. Graff, where do you stand on a 1-cent sales tax increase for a future ballot measure?
I'm sorry, say again, Jim?
For a future ballot measure.
I absolutely support it. What we have now is, a lack of a better term, we have a train wreck. You know, I mean, from the county to the city to the homeless to the drug addiction to crime to simple rapes, simple assaults, battery. I mean, people are, it's just the theft is out of control. And what we don't have are sheriff's deputies to respond. I mean, you look at Eastern Kern County, look at the southern districts. These are specific to District 2, south areas here. There's 3 deputies that work those areas. There's 3 deputies that work Eastern Kern County. Coming back from the thing where we went to the Boron Town Hall yesterday, there was 2 deputies rolling code westbound or eastbound on Highway 58, probably just simply trying to get to a call because of time management. This is out of control. I absolutely support the tax because we are in dire situation where we need something immediately and we need it now. We can sit here and wait and see if oil's going to generate money. We can sit here and wait if we're going to get money from the state. We know we're not. We know that's not going to happen. So we need a special tax until we can get this stuff fixed, and then we can, we can resolve the tax issue if oil revenue comes up. But right now we need it, and I will absolutely push for it when it comes time.
Mr. Cardin?
So I'm happy to answer it today. I think with the idea with record inflation, record home costs, record fuel costs, record food costs, everything is more expensive now than it's ever been at any point that I've been alive. I would never fleece the poorest citizens of Kern County for an extra 1% due to fiscal mismanagement of budgets. That is ridiculous to me. I think that, and the people that I've spoken to across the 2nd District agree with me, that they can't afford to pay anymore. The way that I would address those budget shortfalls is by expanding into other economic industries. Building revenues, replacing our small businesses. 60% of small businesses closed during COVID. Half of those are never going to reopen. We should be expanding the grant programs to help people reopen their businesses. Help first-time entrepreneurs catch the dream of being an entrepreneur. My mother came to this country 50 years ago, and for 50 years now, she's been an American citizen. She's been a homeowner for 40 years, and for 30 years next May, she'll have been a business owner. She was a child laborer at 6 years old, an American war bride at 13. If she can come to Kern County and accomplish this, then anyone should be able to.
Good. Thank you, sir.
We have one last question here. We're going to ask for 30-second answers quickly. So on the topic of loosening restrictions on the cultivation and sale of cannabis, the supervisors voted 4-1 against commercial cannabis. First to you, Mr. Cardin, do you think the board got it wrong? What's your take?
I absolutely think the board got it wrong. To be very honest, I just think that Kern County should offer the same kind of robust cannabis industry that keeps people out of jail and their records clean, like Chairman Scrivener took advantage of in college when he was arrested for selling drugs. I think it's laughable that he's allowed other people to live this life where their records are ruined over an innocent mistake where his wasn't. It shows a lack of compassion, and again, it shows to him being out of touch with the people of the 2nd District.
Mr. Graff, now to you, same question.
Cannabis, it's a very touchy topic. A lot of people, old school, train of thought, they don't really really want it around. I really don't, personally, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's actually, it's a source of revenue. And as long as it's properly managed, as long as it's properly policed, and as long as it's properly, we have to take care of the process of it. We can't just let a bunch of marijuana shops run amok. And I'm kind of afraid that's where we're going to go with it if in fact it occurs. But again, first we have to start with refilling our sheriff's department and refilling other divisions before we start passing out a bunch of licenses for hemp shops, because let's not get the carriage before the horse. Right. We have to make sure we're doing things right here.
And Mr. Scrivener, same question to you.
Thank you. First of all, the county has never done anything to eliminate diversion programs for anyone. That's simply not accurate. I think that when you look at legalizing the dispensaries in storefronts, that's where I think it's extremely problematic. It's problematic because you have kids that walk by those stores. They're in commercial areas. The voters of Kern County have already rejected ballot measures to legalize it. I think it's no surprise that Mr. Kern is pushing for legalization of these dispensaries. He's backed by David Abbasi, who, as you know, is the big marijuana advocate. He operates these illegal dispensaries. He pulled a gun on a 15-year-old child about a year ago and had his guns taken away. And so those are not the kind of people that we want to associate with and operating these shops. And unfortunately, these shops are operated, in my opinion, by some very shady individuals.
All right, gentlemen, we have just enough time for closing statements. Same order as opening statements. Mr. Scrivener, 30 seconds, please.
Well, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve the people of the 2nd District. I think that I have a track record of tough fiscal responsibility, of finding new ways to enhance our economic development in the county. I'm excited about new technologies like carbon capture. But the one important thing that we need to continue to do is support our oil industry. We are under attack by Sacramento, chiefly by Gavin Newsom, and that's an attack on our communities and our families here in Kern County. We do it cleaner and safer than anywhere in the world when it comes to oil extraction. We need to be producing it here, not bring it in from foreign countries that don't like us and don't have any of those environmental controls.
Mr. Graff, 30 seconds, please.
I want to close with this. It's time. Chairman Scrivener's run his time. This is why we have term limits. This is why we have a broken sheriff's department. This is why we have a broken fire department. This is why our mental evaluation teams aren't able to respond and come out and do their job. It is time for change. I'm that change. I would appreciate your vote, specifically Kern County and District 2. I'm here for you. Boron, North Edwards, Roseman, Tehachapi, everybody, Taft, Maricopa, Fraser. I'm for you guys. I'm here for you guys. And I promise to give you all I got. God bless you, Kern County.
Jr.
I'm not a career politician. I don't come from a family that has deep pockets. I chose to run for office because I wanted to serve my neighbors in Kern County. We're 57th in health effects out of 58 counties in the state. We're 51st out of health outcomes. We're in the bottom half of most statistical categories, everywhere ranging from school dropout rates to life expectancy and so many other economic factors. But there's a way forward. There's already going to be a term limit ballot on this year. Vote for it on June 7th.
All right, gentlemen, we thank you for your time. Best of luck to you out on the campaign trail. For Maddie Gannon, I'm Jim Scott. Thank you for joining us for tonight's debate on your local election headquarters, and good night.
Your local election headquarters, brought to you by Barton Marketing Group.